The truth of the matter is that many women are going to be the crash dummy for how a man should appreciate a woman. And I'm not saying that you should walk headfirst into it, but what I'm saying is that it's inevitable. He could assess that he likes certain things about you, just not from you. So oftentimes it wasn't that you were giving too much love, it was too much love from you individually. Because your love isn't just not appreciated, it's appreciated somewhere, just not by him as an individual. It is not uncommon for men that don't actually like you to seek you for your nurturing nature. And he isn't going to tell you to completely go away either because one option is better than no options. But oftentimes when he tells you that it's too much from you specifically. Men that go headfirst into liking you don't really know why they like you. They just know what you have to offer. Where people have to start questioning their confusion is when they conflate what he does to obtain her and his real reasoning for wanting her. Take what he says at face value if his actions follow up, because most of the time he's being very literal, especially if his actions live up to what he's saying. Especially when it's drawn from his inconsistency. On this occasion, you were in a box way before he left you. This is why I tell women in this predicament that many of these men don't really change. You just been around him long enough to see him for what he is. Because the same nice delivery that he had before obtaining you doesn't sound the same the second time around, now does it? Many occasions he's going to continue to have that nice delivery on top of his inconsistency, and it hits a lot more different when you acknowledge how disingenuous it is. Believe him when he says the words, "You're too good for me." Believe him when he says, "I do not deserve you." Believe him when he says your attention is an annoyance to him, especially when his actions follow up with it. See, he's sugarcoating what he actually wants to say to you. Many of y'all women don't even realize that you're just hearing the nice version. Understand that on this specific occasion, those things don't even scratch the surface of what he actually wants to say to you, because of the cons that transpire from telling you it in the first place. You also got to understand that even if they don't like you, they still see an option and a woman in their corner. So one thing they'll never tell you is that they're conditioned, even in the most catastrophic of stages with you, to have a delicate delivery by instinct. I know the contradictions of being selective about morality while lacking it for your time. But it's not supposed to make sense to you, and that's quite the point. But then that brings me to my next point. This is why actions matter, because men are essentially wired to tell you the truth that you want to hear, and they can shape that into anything that they want. And when that happens, they're emulating the emotion that you're giving out. It's not really theirs. It's just a replica, a caricature of what you want to see. A vast number of them that do this don't have the emotional literacy, transparency, and or options to fall on to be honest with you in the first place. And plus, if he did give it to you raw and uncut on how he actually felt about you, would you be willing enough to stick around until his real option came around? Most likely not. He knows the outcome. So what you received is them actually sugarcoating their honesty. This is why I tell people, don't force the ideology of the type of man that you desire down his throat, because he's already good at that. All you're pretty much doing is prolonging the inevitable that's already making itself prominent. Allow him to do as he pleases so he can show you what he'd rather be doing. Utilize the let them method. Let them do what they want. Let them run amok. Let them be inconsistent. If they're not accomplishing the bare minimum expectation of liking and appreciating your attention, which should have been a given, let them. This is how men who truly don't want you communicate. See, men are not difficult when they want you for real reasons. The ones who have to consistently formulate and conjure up a purpose for being around you after they've received their frivolous fill usually are. Your willingness to be with somebody is not the only thing that makes you prepared to date. Your ability to let people go is also a quintessential component. If you are able to let go where you are visibly not being wanted, the let them method should be easy to utilize. There is a high abundance of women that want the guy that's already neglecting them of time to have the same amount of emotional literacy as they do, and it just does not work that way. Especially for the man that's showing early signs of detachment. A firm reminder, if he acquired you with a lack of initiative, that's how he intends on keeping you. No label, no ring, no vacation will change his real-time initiative towards you. Those are often just filler episodes to buy him more time. Proclivities to cushion the blow, if you will. He knew what you wanted to hear since the beginning. It's every man's job to know. I will also like to throw in the fact that a lot of those gestures tend to hit differently for him as well when they weren't utilized as a means to keep you. When they weren't used as an emergency lever to keep you from leaving. Too many people being brought back in. A man's timing will speak volumes about himself. If it took you leaving him because of his inconsistency, the gestures are not that valued by him as they are by you. A man that genuinely wants to do those things is not the same man that uses it as his plan B. The first man ain't taking you out on dinner because he wants to, he just does it because he gets better results by doing so. And they know their options would drastically drop if they ever challenged you on it. That's also the same guy that says don't argue with women, just let them win. He's a man that's playing to his strengths. But on the flip side, you're bound to get lied to substantially more. And as I said on many occasions, because that specific niche of men have revoked you of so much time, it'll feel like they're giving you 90% when they finally decide to give it to you. He ain't want to be bothered for so long and you wanted to do the bothering. That ain't bothering to a man that actually wants you, that's just affection. The other man just knows that if he caters to it, he's going to have his work cut out for him. He's gotten you with inconsistency, why would he try harder? That's why I tell women, in a world where many of your options are going to tell you yes, one of the most genuine things a man could ever tell you was no, because he's giving you a hill to run to. A man that could tell you no at the very beginning usually has restraint. usually has enough remorse for you to not suck you into something that's already going to be counterintuitive. He could disagree with you, but not every disagreement has to be an argument. It only becomes an argument when you call it one. And you can learn a lot from somebody that opposes your opinion every once in a while. They usually want you to accept them for who they are, because they're aware that we live in a world where many of these men are going to give you a yes that is secretly a silent no 8 months later. And them being able to vocalize them disagreeing with you does not mean that they like you less. But understand that if you can get him to fold on his own personal beliefs, it's not going to be uncommon for another woman to do it as well. And on top of that, why would anybody even feel comfortable dealing with somebody that doesn't know what the word no sounds like? If you see yourself being told yes consistently at the very beginning of a relationship that you have, say something stupid every now and then and see if they actually agree with it. It'll speak volumes about their character and about their intent. Because if you can dig up the real reason as to why they're pursuing you, you'll come to realize the more that they have of you, the more diminished their image becomes of you. If it was not rooted in longevity, he detached from you without a trace because he didn't have the emotional literacy to tell you that you shrouded his judgment and he was pursuing you for his own hedonistic purposes. See, this is what separates him being attracted to you as opposed to finding you attractive and allowing that to dictate all of his decisions that involve you. Men can find you attractive for a vast number of reasons. But so as long as they can't fathom those traits in long term, it'll never count for anything to them. He can find your taste in a certain thing that he's interested in attractive, but he only pursued you for that specific taste. So he has to find something else. He can find you attractive for how you look, but that's not enough. So he has to find something else. He'll allow his judgment of you to be shrouded by that one specific thing up until the month is over. So in better terms, it's more like I pursued you for one specific trait initially until I've gotten enough of it. Or at least until I run out of things to like about you, which is scapegoating my real purpose for being here. See, the reason he has to find things to like about you is because he truly never did. He likes the person that you are and he likes how hospitable you are, but he can't see himself being with you. It's almost similar to the plot of 500 Days of Summer. He likes an idea about you more than he actually likes you. And for many of them, it usually takes up to a month for them to decipher whether they're done with you or not, sometimes longer. Because for them, a month is not too long, not too short. And I want to give you a quick reminder that I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who is not as invested as you are. So before you start freaking out saying, what, a month? That isn't that long. Well, of course, any month will feel excessively long if you were given in 80% of initiative and he was only given 20% in on the back end. 1 month will always feel like 3 to you when you're infatuated with a man that cares about you abundantly less. And a lot of these interests he can find in many other individuals, so it's not hard to replace you. Frivolous reasonings are often very replaceable. The 90% or the 100% that you thought he was giving you, yeah, that's all hopes and dreams. So a month invested, not the same as a month not invested. But on many of these occasions where the man is self-aware, they're also aware that your attraction for them is blinding you from seeing the regression. Y'all attraction shrouds the regression just as much as his frivolous attraction shrouds his judgment. Only difference is one of y'all is truly secured by the other and invested. And I say this to say this is why it's rare for him to say I love you in the first month and actually mean it. No, he loves things about you, but he also knows when you're throwing choosing signals in his direction. It ain't hard for him to sound that convincing when he's already that guy for you in your head. As I said before, if he's pursuing you for reasons that are subjectively not rooted in longevity, his image that he formulates of you can only become more diminished and more diminished. Finding out what that man actually values will save you half the time. Because most men are not going to tell you, I want to use you for a specific month and then drop you at the end of it. No, he'd sabotage his own chances of getting what he actually wanted. Many people really got to stop pondering if they like you and start asking why they like you. Because a vast number of them are always going to like you even when they don't like you. This is why when there's no substance in your situationship, that hug starts to feel more and more awkward because he tarnished his image of you. The more that he begins to see you. I see too many people that are given one too many passes to their crushes and are told minimal information. And they're completely fine with it because they think their infatuation for that person is going to show. Sitting around expecting an explanation to come around 4 to 5 business weeks. Essentially, many of them know how you want to be kept. They had to acquire you by baiting you with it. But I want you to ask yourself something. Has him playing oblivious kept you around? If this relates to you, then yes, it has. And I know it goes without saying, but if you allow this man that shares this belief system aloud in front of you and he tells you you're the exception and you make him your first love, you're more than likely going to find yourself between a rock and a hard place. Being with them will potentially shift your entire belief system at the very beginning on how you should be treated, not only by them, but by other individuals as well. They will convince you that you will only ever deserve less than bare minimum. This is how many of those doormat mindsets are actually birthed. And many women that never grew up with a proper male role model receive it the worst because they're put in a constant cycle. I've come to the conclusion that many women who never had a genuine male role model, and I don't mean any male because a lot of them that y'all love be telling y'all BS to cushion the blow. I do mean genuine as in wisdom with substance. A father, uncle, genuine homeboy to give you real nitty gritty direction instead of something that's just cut and dry. to spare your feelings. Many women that never had a stand-up guy in their life usually learn about men from the men who intend to use and play them. So many of their first experiences are from the worst caliber. That doesn't mean that it's all men, but the worst ones do tend to find out faster due to the fact that their motives are rooted in convenience and quick short-term satisfaction. Ain't much for them to look for if their mind's already made up. And the outcome of that is people that subscribe to these atrocious relationship dynamics that would only favor people that would like you for a month. And he ain't gonna tell himself because being a great guy doesn't get him the results that he desires.
You don't even know me. Why do you care?
If his answers have essentially been his actions up until this point, the last thing that you want to be asking is why. You are giving this man the opportunity to bounce back. You were vulnerable enough to have the conversation with him after witnessing his actions. It's one thing to leave, it's another thing to give him a PowerPoint on his own deception, which they are very self-aware of. If he selected you out of circumstance and convenience, it won't take long for him to show his true colors. And oftentimes, their true colors been visible. We just make exceptions and give slaps on the wrist where they don't belong. But if he chose you out of convenience, his initiative for you can only get sloppier. And you sitting him down just shows him that you care more than he does. You're practically putting him at an advantage. He's not going to rectify the issue because he would have rectified it before choosing you. And there's nothing to reflect on if he sustained having you this way. One of the primary things deterring him from taking you seriously is how he selected you, out of convenience and circumstance. And if his bounce back response from you critiquing how you want to be kept is, I don't know how to be in a relationship or keep you, it's nothing more than weaponized incompetence. Because remember, he had to pull you in the first place with nuances of possible potential. Unless you're just a fool in love who guided the entirety of the situationship off of imaginary notions. It don't take but a handful of strikes to tell him how you want to be treated, especially if it's bare minimum stuff. Like be consistent and show restraint. If the capacity of you having to check him on just being courteous, displaying morality, or displaying consideration continues to climb, he's surely just passing time. The more you continue to fight off his inadequacies, the more ammunition you involuntarily relinquish to him. Because I don't know if y'all realize this, but consecutive anger and frustration tends to become very predictable for the man that pulled you in the first place. This is usually how you got here in the first place. If he can get you out of character, he can surely put you back in it if you allow him to. That's not a good thing in this circumstance. Because if he got this far with you, your threshold for tolerating stuff isn't as high as you think it is. The bar is practically in his face. I also want to let y'all know that the extravagant exit that you have in the back of your mind isn't going to come to fruition because he is the man that he is. You don't really need to announce your exit if he knows why you're leaving. Anyone who is the root of the issue, even outside of this scenario, knows why you're leaving. Yeah, of course you could tell him that you're leaving if it doesn't click or work out, obviously, but this is not that. Making some extravagant exit on a man that intentionally neglected you in an attempt to make him regret everything that he chose to do is not going to work in your favor in real time. Because his anger won't be over you, it'll be over the access to you. Don't conflate the two. Trust and believe they can see your feelings through your lack of absence and extravagant exits. People love to linger on trying to get back to a person that is already aware of how they feel about them. Yeah, that doesn't work on a man that knows he can take you for granted. And 9 times out of 10, they don't gotta announce their deception or announce that they're leaving you. If they've been around you long enough, they're doing it just to elicit a reaction out of you. They care much more about that reaction. And it's usually outrage in that moment. All they could ever do is take the emotions that apply to them and apply it to you. So in their head is, what would I say if I wanted her to feel envy or get the last laugh? If he was the one that obtained you and deliberately lost you, the last thing that he was is born last night.